welcome to the Connect studio. My name's Jonathan Spence-Jones, and I'm joined today by Daan Schut, Chief Transition Officer of Alliander. Daan, would you like to join me?
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good to meet you.
I'd like to start. The post of Chief Transition Officer, I think, is a new one for utilities. And could you tell us some background about that and how it's sort of influenced Alliander's approach to the energy transition?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, in the Netherlands it's actually a common board position, but only since 3 years, I think. And yeah, my job is actually about building new pathways. So we are, I think, building not incrementally changing the energy system, but building a total new one. So we cannot stay doing the things that we did for the last 10, 20, 30 years, like we did it in those times. And so my job is about, on the long term, defining how the energy system will look like. So the energy mix between electricity, hydrogen, heating. It's about the transition parts toward that new world. How can we, which steps can we take to come in that new world? And then, of course, the investment planning afterwards. And so it's about interacting a lot with municipalities, with the government, to discuss how the system looks like, but also defining the pathways to it. Yeah.
Right. And what are some of the challenges and perhaps some of the key issues that are faced by utilities in the Netherlands?
Actually, what we see is that since actually the Paris Agreement and the climate agreement we had after that in the Netherlands, we see an enormous uptake in decarbonization. At first, that was I think 4 or 5 years ago, mainly solar fields that were put in place. Subsidized with massive amount of money. So we saw an enormous uptake. We were 5 years ago at the bottom list in Europe with solar penetration. Now we are top of the list. And since 2 years we see an enormous uptake in decarbonization of industry and logistics, transportation. And that comes with an enormous speed, which has caused a lot of congestion on the electricity grids in the Netherlands, mainly the medium voltage grids. And now, in this year, because of the Ukraine war and the high energy prices, we see another acceleration. So we see a lot of companies and customers. The Netherlands is highly depending on natural gas. Of course, the natural gas prices are very high. So we see enormous uptake in electrification of demand, mainly, to get rid of the natural gas assets and to transfer them to electricity. And that causes enormous congestion in the grid. And because of that, economy is flattening. We see the decarbonization is under pressure because of the congestion, grid congestion. So we have a major challenge in looking for alternatives to be able to connect customers.
And what has been Alliander's experiences so far, and are there any particular innovations, technologies you can mention that you've introduced?
Yeah, actually the interesting period we are in now is that we have worked on a lot of innovation last 5 to 10 years within Alliander, but also in the whole of Europe and the world, I think. We thought would be becoming interesting in the coming 5 to 10 years. So the whole digitization of the grid and the connection with customers. And now we see, because of the congestion in the grid in the Netherlands, we see that that world we expected to be there in 5 or 10 years is getting there now. So we are now in that, stepped in that world. And to give an example, I talked to an association of energy communities in the Netherlands a few weeks ago, and they said to me, "Daan, we have an energy community. We produce locally solar energy or wind energy, and actually we want to sell it to our neighbors. And because of the high energy prices on the European market, we sell it to our neighbors against an enormous high energy price, where we earn a lot of money, but our neighbors pay a lot of money, and where we would actually would be able to sell it for cost price or cost price plus." And there you see that the system we are in, the energy market ordering we are in, is not applicable anymore, because what you want is a peer-to-peer connection with a peer-to-peer energy price trade. So we see that actually what we expect to be there in 5 or 10 years is there now. And of course, we are putting a lot of money in reinforcing our electricity grid. We put billions of money in reinforcing the grid. But that will help in 5 or 10 years, because grid reinforcement takes a lot of time. And we see enormous pressure now on smart solutions. So we work on new contract forms like time-based contracts, where you only are allowed to connect with the grid during nighttime, or you have a firm capacity that is lower than you have normally, and get a non-firm capacity when you can interact with the grid when the peaks are high and you need energy, or the other way around. So we are actually stepping now in a world that we would expect to be there in 5 or 10 years, and is now very important to become there.
So in terms of that uncertainty, are there any suggestions, recommendations, regulatory issues? What are the sort of issues that need to be addressed to smooth the way and make that period a bit more certain?
Yeah. Interesting is that the Netherlands is known for their legislation giving grid companies and energy companies space to innovate. But actually what we see is that space is not good enough. So what really is needed now is that we make major steps in new legislation and new grid codes to make that major step to a whole new way of thinking about how to arrange the market. And the biggest challenge is there that we actually have a legislation that gives you the guarantee as a company or as a customer to interact with the grid 24/7. So you can always, like compare it with a highway, you can always go on the highway with your car and never have a traffic jam. That's how we organize our energy system at this moment. And that's crazy. That's not possible anymore because of the high peaks and so we have to change that system by legislation. But the biggest challenge is to change our behavior, because we are it's very normal for us to be on that grid and use the energy when we like it, and that world is not possible anymore. And we see it now. We talk a lot about it already for 10 years in the world, but we see it now in the Netherlands, really in practice, that it's not possible because we have a fully congested grid. So the step to we work on that with all stakeholders in the Netherlands. We have 20 associations at the table to discuss, okay, we all recognize that we have to get to loosen up in our own interests, in our, and be more flexible, and work with the grid to enable customers to connect. Because otherwise, I've now a hospital in the northern part of the Netherlands. It's not able to expand because of the grid congestion. That's crazy. You can't think about it in the Netherlands, but that's the world we're in now.
So how much of that should come at national level as distinct from European level?
Yeah, actually, in Europe, a lot is organized on European level for legislation. So we need the European Commission to change legislation. But there is also room for the Dutch government to and of course the regulator to change the legislation. So we're working on that a lot with them. And you see, because of the large congestion now for the last year, they have made a switch in understanding that they have to speed up in changing the legislation. And then if we have arranged that, the most difficult part still is there, and that is the dialogue with the customers, the dialogue with the municipalities, because the real change has to be in the local grid. So the behavior of people are locally. It's not the government cannot change it. They can give some price incentives, but the real change has to be in the neighborhood, and there we have to make the real change. Yeah,
I think that's possibly one of the biggest challenges facing utilities is the consumer change.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and also the industry. So we have in the Netherlands a lot of companies that have a very baseload energy usage, and now we ask them to get rid of that baseload and get more demand response flexibility in their company. And that's of course a big change for them in their processes, and of course a big business case challenge for them. So the mind shift in behavior and business cases, that's the biggest challenge.
Well, I look forward to seeing how it develops over the next year.
Yeah, but, it's very interesting to be in this job, and actually, I don't know where we will be in the coming year. I hope we have a lot of acceleration, but that's of course the nice challenge of the job to really anticipate and to work on that transition.
Yeah, we'll look forward to catching up next year.
Yeah.
Thank you, Daan, for your insights.
Thank you.
And for more insights, be sure to tune in to Enlit.world. Thank you.
Thank you.